Okay, I'm not the only one, right? Sometimes you see a design and something just feels off. Like, not bad, not broken, just wrong. It's like the colors are fighting each other. Like, they met 5 minutes ago and they already want to file for divorce. And the worst part is you can't always explain why. But here's the truth that no one tells you when you first start graphic design. Color palettes are not just about picking the colors that you like. It's all about building relationships. If your color palette has no relationship system, no hierarchy, no intention, no logic, your design will always feel a little bit off, even if everything else is perfect. So today, I'm telling you how to fix that. Because if you ever sat in front of your screen and started using the color picker like you're speed dating hex codes, hoping that something magically works, yeah, we're done with that era. Let's start with the biggest misconception. People think that a color palette is just a set of colors. It's not. A color palette is a system. The moment that you start treating it like a system instead of a Pinterest mood board, everything changes. Because a strong color palette doesn't just look good, it behaves well. They do things like guiding the eye, creating contrast, telling the viewer what visually matters. Color palettes can make your design feel intentional. And intention? That's the difference between amateur and professional work. So how do we actually build one? First, you need a role system, not just vibes, not just like, oh, this is cute. Roles, your primary, your secondary, and your accent. You can think of your primary color like your anchor. This is the one that does the heavy lifting. And your secondary, it's there for support. It adds variation without stealing the spotlight. And your accent, that's the color that is here for the drama. When that color shows up, it makes a statement. And then just as quickly, it leaves before it overstays its welcome. If everything in your color palette is an accent, congratulations, you made visual noise. Now here's where people start spiraling. They start asking questions like, how many colors should I use? And I am going to say something slightly controversial. It is not about the number of colors. It is about control. You could have 5 colors and a complete disaster. You could have 12 and it will look like a masterpiece. The difference is whether those colors work well together, or are they just coexisting aggressively? Let's talk about harmony for a second. Because yes, color theory exists. You could use complementary, analogous, triadic systems, whatever works. And yes, those are very helpful. But if you rely on them blindly, then your work starts to feel predictable. It starts to feel safe. A little bit like every design tutorial on the internet. So instead of asking, do these colors follow the rules? You need to be asking things like, do they feel like they belong together? Because real-world color palettes are rarely ever perfect color wheel diagrams. They're slightly off, slightly unexpected, and that's the very thing that makes them interesting. Now here's where things get fun, because color palette building isn't just about choosing colors. It is about building contrast. And contrast is where most design quietly fails, because designers think that contrast means light versus dark. And that's part of it. But real-world contrast is about difference in purpose. If everything in your design has the same visual weight, then your viewer doesn't know where to look. So you need a palette that will create dominance, subordination, aka what supports it, and emphasis, what do you want to stand out? Without that, your design is just existing. Let me give you a really quick reality check moment. If you turn your design into Grayscale right now, does it still work? If your answer is no, that means that your palette is doing too much of the heavy lifting. And I don't mean that in a good way. Because strong design, it works in black and white first. Color is the enhancement, not a crutch. Now let's talk about a mistake I see constantly, and I mean constantly. Designers picking color at straight up full saturation, like the most intense version of every color. And then they sit back and wonder why it looks like everything is yelling. Here's the thing. Most professional color palettes live in a muted, controlled space. Not dull, not boring, controlled. Because when everything is loud, then nothing is loud. But when your color palette is mostly calm, then that one bold accent, it hits so much harder. This is why tools like tint, shade, and tone are your best friends. Instead of adding more colors, you could expand them by adjusting them. Lighter, darker, softer. And suddenly your 3-color palette, it feels like 10, all without losing cohesion, of course. Now let's get a little more conceptual. Because palette building, it isn't just technical, it's emotional. Colors carry meaning, and not just like red equals danger and blue equals calm. It could be cultural, contextual, personal. A deep forest green, it could feel luxurious in one project, and then it could feel outdoorsy in another. A soft pink, it could feel romantic. Or it could feel corporate, depending on how you use it. So when you build a palette, you need to ask, what does it feel like? Not just simply what looks good, because design is communication, and color is one of your loudest voices. Let's talk about workflow for a second, because I know you're probably wondering, okay, what do I actually do to start a palette? And here's a simple approach. Start with one color, not 5, not 10, just one, your anchor. Then build around it intentionally. Add a supporting color that doesn't compete. Then finally add an accent to create tension. And once you have those 3, stop, pause, test them. Because this is another mistake. People build color palettes in isolation. They don't apply them. And then you sit down and design and throw your colors into a layout and you realize they don't work. Use them in typography, backgrounds, UI elements. Because a color palette that looks good in swatches could immediately fall apart when you put it to use. And if it all falls apart, good! Then that means that you caught it early. Adjust, refine, repeat. Palette building isn't a one and done decision. It tends to be iterative. Now let's address the elephant in the room. What about trends? Because we all know it, every year there's a new it palette. Muted pastels, high saturated neons, earth tones, digital lavender. That one was my favorite. Whatever is having its moment. And look, trends are fun, they're useful, but if your entire palette is built on trends, your design will age like Cloud Dancer. So instead of chasing trends, use them as seasoning, not the whole meal. Here's another perspective shift that might change your life a little bit. Your palette isn't just for looking, it's for functioning. I cannot stress this enough in digital design. Accessibility, it really matters. Contrast ratios matter. Readability matters. Because if your beautiful palette makes text impossible to read, it's not a good palette. That's a pretty problem. So now that we've talked about roles, contrast, emotion, and workflow, let's tie it all together. A strong palette has clear roles, creates contrast, feels cohesive, supports the message and works in real application, and most importantly, it feels intentional. Because at the end of the day, people might not be able to articulate why your design feels good. They won't say like, oh, I love how the accent color creates visual hierarchy. No, they just feel it. They trust it, they engage with it. And that is the goal as a designer. So next time that you sit down and you build a palette, don't just choose colors. Build relationships, build structures, build intention. Because once you do that, you'll stop guessing. And that's when you really start designing. And honestly, that's where it gets really fun. But okay guys, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Subscribe for more videos just like this because I make them every single week. And that's all I have for you right now. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!